Welcome to our shop just outside Kennesaw here in North Georgia. Today's project is this antique, I guess it's a lamp table or a fern stand or an occasional table. Backstory on this is I picked it up at an estate sale. They initially wanted $40 for it. As I've said before, these antique pieces don't sell that well here. This one has some damage. I wound up buying it for $10. And it's got a few things wrong with it, and that's what the focus of this video is going to be. But before we get into this table, I want to just mention something. The channel's up to 7,300 subscribers, which just baffles me, and I thank you all very much for that. I know I'm not producing videos as regularly as I should be, but there are some other things going on that keep me away from that. What was most surprising to me is last night I was going through the channel stats, and we're up over 1 million views. I don't even know what to say. That's just incredible. So hopefully there's 1 million people who have at least clicked through the channel and hopefully learned something. So to all of you, thank you very much. Let's take a look at this table. Okay, here she is. The top's not in very bad shape. It probably had a split at one time that was re-glued. This seam isn't very tight, but it's secure. The top, I can again say the top's in pretty good shape. The table has been refinished, and it was refinished, it looks like, with a top coat mixed with a glaze. It's got kind of a cloudy look to it. I'm going to turn this upside down, and there's an example of whatever ugly finish was put on this that dripped on the underside. Here's the underside of the shelf that we've got to pull this patch off. And there's the misalignment that we're dealing with, that we're trying to correct. Okay, let's see if we get this patch off. Place your bets as to whether or not this is glued on or not. Lucky break, it's not glued on. Now let's see if we can do a little bit better job putting it back together. Okay, we've got the glue joint all cleaned out, and I put it together, and you can see how nice and tight we were able to get this joint to come back. But there's kind of an interesting conundrum here, and I wanted to share it with you. Let me zoom out a little bit. As you can see, I've got 1/4 inch spacers on each side of that shelf to get this joint to pull tight together. When I pull these spacers out, and this lays flat, you can see we got a pretty good gap there. You can see we've got a bit of a gap there, and I'm just not sure I want to fill that and then have to work on finishing that top. Let me throw a couple of clamps across there and see how tightly we can pull that together, leaving it flat. Okay, I've got some clamps across it. You can see this is nice and tight. The clamps have pulled this up. So if I put some weight down on it, now it's flat, and there's your gap. I think if we can keep the gap to here, we're okay gluing this flat and not having to glue it on a curve. Either way would work. The curved, the slight curve of this shelf wouldn't really be noticed and could certainly accommodate it in the way it's mounted against the legs. But you're always best to glue things nice and true and flat. And if we were refinishing this, it'd be no big deal to fill this at all and refinish it. But I'm trying to avoid refinishing this piece because it's really not worth very much. Maybe $100 when it's all done, less. And I really don't want to refinish this piece for that amount of money. So I think what I'm going to do is glue it flat, and we'll deal with this little crack as what do we call that? Patina? Patina it is. Some Russian girl, patina, I think. All right, here we go. And here's our setup for, basically we're just dry gluing it right now. But you can see our seam is it's fairly reasonable, and it draws pretty tight up here. Well, I hope you can see how tight that seam pulled together. I'm really surprised. I'm very glad we took the time to set up this this clamping system. We were able to get that joint very, very tight, and we did it with the table or with the shelf nice and flat. Alright, we're going to let this dry overnight. Let's move on to the legs. Okay, here's what the legs look like attached to the table. You can see this one's about ready to fall out. If you remember the video I did called In, Not Out, I'm sorry, In, Not Up, we talk about these legs, and what these are sliding dovetails. And to get this leg out, you have to tap it this way and take it out at the big end. Too many times people will crank them and twist them or try to pull them out, and they wind up busting them off. So they go in and then up, not straight up. Let me get these legs off and I'll show you. And I hope you can see the dovetail that's cut into the end of these legs. That's what holds them in. And then when we glue them back in, they're often pretty loose. Very often I have to put these back in with epoxy. Let's get the rest of these legs out. And there we go. All we got to do is clean the glue out of the mortises and off these dovetail tenons, and then we've got to come up with a way. Of fixing this mess here. To get the old glue off, I'm just going to use a chisel, a nice sharp chisel on the outside here where the leg sat on the tabletop, and then inside here, use the same deal. Just scrape out as much of this old glue as we can. Prepare these legs to be properly reattached. No big secret there. 3 more to go. And we've got a leg clamped in the vise of the workbench. And again, using the chisel, just going to scrape off whatever glue we can get. There's really not a lot of glue on any of these surfaces. Alright, we've got screw holes on 2 of the legs that we need to do something with. So let's see, I've got it clamped in the bench right there. Let's go take a look at this one and try to figure out how we're going to repair it. And I've got you in as close as I can. This is the original screw hole, and this looks like where somebody screwed up. So we can just fill this incorrect screw hole with wood filler or epoxy putty or whatever we want. But let's make sure that this will hold a screw, and I'm threading this in, and it's nice and tight, so we don't have to do anything with this hole. All we got to do is fill this one, so let's get to it. And this is what I'm going to use. It's Mohawk's epoxy putty stick. This is an oak/light walnut. And we really don't need very much here. Just cut off a piece, mix it up till it's a uniform color, stuff it in the hole, make it as flat as you can. This dries in probably 10 minutes. Well, it sets up in 10 minutes. It'll continue to get harder and harder as time goes on, but it's a very, very good product. I highly recommend it. Okay, I'm gonna leave that screw in the original hole for now. Just work that epoxy putty in there, and no one's ever even going to see this because of the location it's in, but it's just the right thing to do in my opinion. That one's done. Let's take a look at the next one. Okay, here's the damaged one. You can see that this original screw hole is wallered out. I'm wondering if somebody put a second screw hole in there and they got too close together with them, but that's just a mess and it's never going to hold. So what we got to do is fill this. What I'm going to do is drill that out, drill a nice clean hole in here and plug it with a dowel, and then we'll cut the dowel flush, and when we reassemble the table, the last thing we'll do after the legs are all attached to the shelf is we'll drill a new hole into our new wood and attach that correctly. So let's get to it. Okay, we've got this leg clamped in the drill press vise. I've got it lined up with a 1/2-inch Forstner bit. The way the shop is set up, guys, I just cannot get you in here for this shot. But that's the setup we're using. Just going to run that in about halfway, and then we will stick a dowel in there. So let me get to it. Here's a little piece of 1/2-inch dowel I cut. I tapered one end and then I cut a groove in it with a saw blade to let the air out as it goes in. I thought I had a 1/2-inch oak dowel. I don't, so I'm going to use this one here. Boy, is that tight. Okay, we'll let that dry perhaps overnight. We'll come back, we'll trim it flush, and we're ready to move forward. Good morning, it's the next day. Let's put this table back together. Well, I tell you what, I don't think we could have asked for anything better than that. I am tickled pink the way that came out. We're ready to put this back together now. I have the legs tapped in, they're all the way in where they belong. And then I put 3 screws in the 3 legs, or 1 screw in each of the 3 legs that have the holes. And then this is the one that we repaired. We have to drill a hole into our plug. So what I've done is mounted an appropriate size drill bit in my new air drill. Can't help myself. You don't need an air drill to do this, but I've got it and I want to use it because it's the first job I'm using it on. I'll probably drill right through the garage door with it. So we'll set that up and drill a pilot hole, get the screw in there, then we'll disassemble the whole thing, glue everything together, put it together, and we'll be done. So here we go. That was about as slow as this thing goes. If you want to hear it full open, I love it. Let's get that screw in. And as we frequently do, I'm going to put a little bit of wax on the threads. This is just an old candle. Bingo. Okay, she's all back together. Now we just got to take it all apart, glue the legs in, and the legs went in really tightly, so I'm just going to glue those in with yellow carpenter's glue, and the shelf doesn't get glued in, it just held in with the screws. So that's the next and the last step, so here we go. And in case you're wondering, that's how our repair came out. There's a screw hole. Looks good. Okay, I think we're in good shape. Let's flip it on its legs, get it set nice and square on the floor. We'll put some weight on it, let the glue dry on the legs, and we'll be all done. Alright, we've put our anvil on top of this. Make sure the legs are pressed in real nice to the top. Everything looks good. There's our repair there. We'll just let it sit overnight. We'll come back, take the tape off, polish it up, and she's all done. Hey, we're back. She's all done. I think she came out great. The repair to the shelf is very good. The repair to the legs is great. It is what it is. Like we said in the beginning of the video, we're not going to worry about the finish. We're not going to worry about, you know, the scratches and things on it. This table is not going to bring enough money to justify my time to refinish it. If it was a client piece, if it was something that was going in our home, absolutely. But for the little bit of furniture flipping I still do, you know, I'm very, very protective of my time. This entire repair probably would have taken an hour, maybe an hour and a half if I wasn't shooting a video. Now that's shop time, you know, we have dry times. Once you glue up the the shelf. You know, you want to let it set overnight, things like that. But in general, I figure I got an hour, hour and a half in this. I bought it for $10. Let's say we sell it for $100. There's 90 bucks. That's 90 bucks an hour at, you know, anywhere between $45 and $90 an hour. And it's easy work. That's why I chose to do it. I don't do a lot of rote refinishing anymore. It's just not, in my opinion, at this stage of my life, something I enjoy doing. It's physically demanding. It's dirty. It's sweaty work, and I really don't need to for the business that I'm in. So I'll focus on the occasional flip, you know, repairs, touch-ups, and, you know, working for some of the dealers in the antique malls locally that find themselves with a broken piece of furniture and they don't know what to do. But that's what my future holds. So anyways, from our shop just outside Kennesaw here in North Georgia, best regards, thanks for watching. Take good care, and remember, just wood color and shiny stuff. And to all of you out there, thanks again. 1 million views. Wow. Take care. We'll see you next video.